In the luminous dome of the Grand Assembly, deep in the heart of Concord space, representatives of 52 spacefaring civilizations gathered under the light of a simulated starfield. Every species of note was there gliding, walking, hovering, or humming at their assigned positions. This was not a routine gathering. The topic today was survival. The Void Swarm had pushed deeper into inhabited systems. What began as isolated attacks had escalated into coordinated strikes. Dozens of colonies across the galactic rim had gone silent. The swarm did not communicate. It did not negotiate. It only advanced. High Chancellor Kuru of the Zelenoth Alliance, a towering being of translucent limbs and radiant eyes, floated to the center of the assembly ring. "Let us now hear from the Terran representative," he announced, voice echoing with artificial clarity. There was a pause. Then a human stepped forward. Envoy Micah Tiarn wore no flowing robes or cyber armor like the others. Just a crisp navy blue uniform, clean but unadorned. He looked up at the gathered crowd, his gaze steady. Some regarded him with mild curiosity. Others barely looked at all. "Honorable members of the Concord," Micah began, voice amplified through the chamber. "The Earth Confederation offers its full support in the defense of Sense as the galaxy. We'll be sending a vessel to join the effort." There was a polite pause, a few nods. Chancellor Kuru tilted his head. "A vessel?" he repeated. "Yes. One ship," Micah said firmly. This time, there was no pause. The chamber erupted. Laughter, in many forms, filled the hall. Not all species laughed the same, but the sentiment was unmistakable. A ripple of amusement, bordering on mockery, swept through the delegation. "One ship," hissed the Cyvron delegate, whose people could produce an entire battle fleet in 3 days. "Is this symbolic?" asked another. A gesture of morale. Even. The normally reserved Osrine clicked their mandibles in amusement. "Let the humans send their explorers. We shall send the warships." Micah stood quietly through it all. He had expected this. Earth had been seen as little more than a curious upstart in galactic affairs. A new arrival, still struggling to understand advanced technology with only a few functioning starships outside its system. No colonies beyond its neighboring moons. No impressive air mass. And now, they offered one ship. The laughter continued until Kuru raised a shimmering limb. "Envoy Tiarn," he said with amusement veiled as diplomacy, "we are grateful for your commitment. May this single ship serve as a beacon of courage." Micah nodded once. "It will." He left the hall without another word as the delegates turned to other matters. Fleet deployments, refugee traffic, failing supply lines. Few gave Earth another thought. The Terrans had always been imaginative, yes, passionate, certainly, but one ship. It was more poetic than practical. Only one species in the room did not join the laughter. The stool did not speak much in these gatherings. They were ancient, patient observers whose memories stretched back into lost millennia. Their delegate, a silver-robed figure named Orus Val, watched the human envoy go with narrowed eyes. They remembered what others had forgotten. In humanity's brief history, barely 200 years among the stars, they had survived disasters, adapted faster than any known race, and carried with them a fierce, unpredictable ingenuity. The stool had a saying passed down in their memory vaults: "Beware the quiet species that sends only one ship." No crowds gathered at the launch site. No banners waved in the wind. No grand speeches were made. On a rocky stretch of land near the southern edge of New Dakar spaceport, beneath low clouds and the soft hum of orbital defense grids, humanity's single ship prepared for departure. Her name, painted in bold silver across her reinforced hull, was simple: Valkyrie. The ship didn't gleam like Concorde cruisers. It had no elegant curves or ceremonial symbols. The Valkyrie was angular, matte-plated, and heavily armored. Every inch of its design screamed function over form. It was built not to impress, but to endure. Captain Lyra Hale stood at the base of the boarding ramp, scanning her crew one last time. 22 officers and specialists, each handpicked from across Earth's fragmented nations. No politicians. No diplomats. Only engineers, scientists, and soldiers. Each of them had volunteered. Even knowing what they were facing, a vast, hostile galaxy at war with an enemy no one fully understood, Lyra wasn't a career officer. She had once been an astrophysicist, buried in equations and theories about exotic matter. She hadn't asked for this role, but she had accepted it when offered. She understood systems, and she understood people under pressure. That, she was told, would be enough. Final systems check complete, said Commander Sato, the ship's second-in-command and former test pilot. All systems green. Engines are on standby. Lyra nodded and glanced toward the horizon, where clouds split momentarily to reveal the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere. Let's make history. Then she said quietly, inside, Valkyrie was a maze of reinforced corridors, modified cargo holds, and repurposed science labs. It had been built in secret, piece by piece, in orbital dry docks around Earth and Mars. Its outer hull was composed of layered titanium-carbon composites, its interior filled with redundant systems designed to survive long-term isolation. Most notably, it carried experimental technology cloaking arrays, adaptive shielding, and a prototype AI core named Ion. Everything had been pushed to the edge of what humanity could build, and it still felt like it might not be enough at launch. Time, Earth's global networks broadcast nothing. There were no celebrations. Not because people didn't care, but because they were afraid. This wasn't a parade. It was a farewell as Valkyrie rose from the platform, engines burning silent white against the dark sky. Only a few scattered technicians and officers watched from the safety perimeter. One of them, a grizzled veteran from Earth's first interplanetary missions, whispered under his breath, "One ship, all heart." The Valkyrie ascended steadily into low orbit. Once there, Lyra and her team ran a final systems sweep before preparing for their first jump. Their destination, a sector near the fringes of Concord territory. Already under threat from the Void Swarm, they would enter through a minor hyperlane 1. Few others used due to its unstable coordinates. "What if we don't come back?" asked Lieutenant Vega, the ship's communications officer, as she secured her station. Lyra didn't answer immediately. She looked at the crew gathered on the bridge, each in their place, calm but tense. No one had asked for guarantees. "We're not here to come back," Lyra said at last. "We're here to matter." The crew nodded. The room fell silent. "Ion," Lyra said, addressing the AI. "Prepare for jump. Set destination. Sector Kilo 8. Lock in coordinates." The AI's voice was calm and crisp. "Coordinates locked. All systems optimal. Standing by to execute. Engage." In a burst of controlled light and warping space, the Valkyrie vanished. Then came silence. No signal, no ping. No trace. The ship had left. And to the rest of the galaxy, it was as if humanity's only contribution to the war had disappeared. But Earth remembered, and waited. 3 months passed, then 6, then a year. Across the galaxy, the war with the Void Swarm grew worse. What had once been described as a distant threat became a relentless advance. The outer colonies of the Concord fell one by one, consumed by the enemy's expansion. Whole sectors went dark. Refugees flooded into core systems, bringing stories of worlds stripped bare and defenses overwhelmed. Fleet after fleet was sent to hold the line. Few returned in the Grand Assembly. The tone had shifted. The laughter that once greeted Earth's offering had faded into silence, replaced by tension and quiet urgency. No one spoke of the Valkyrie anymore. It was assumed lost, destroyed in some remote corner of space. Its brave crew gone without a trace, but Earth remembered in quiet monitoring stations orbiting Luna and scattered through the Martian belt. Terran analysts watched for any sign of their lost ship. It's not because they expected it to return. Most believed it wouldn't, but because they hoped. It was during a routine sweep, 426 days after Valkyrie's departure, that something changed. A technician named Idris Poe sat alone in a long-range listening post near the asteroid colony of Pallas. His shift was nearly over when his screen blinked with a faint alert. A narrowband signal lulled Terran encryption. Low power, barely traceable. Something from deep space. Something human. ID. RIS stared at it, unsure if it was real. Then the message. Repeated, he stood up slowly, heart pounding, and called it in. Within hours, Earth's orbital command centers were lit with activity. The signal wasn't just noise. It was a tight beam transmission, crypted using a now obsolete code from Earth's Deep Space Protocol, a code that only one ship in the galaxy had access to. Valkyrie, it had sent no words, only a data burst with coordinates. A location in deep space that no Concord map labeled. A red star system near the outer edges of Sector Kiloweight, far beyond where any patrols currently operated. A scout drone was dispatched quietly, launched from a Terran Black Ops vessel. It traveled fast and alone, avoiding Concord attention. What it found changed everything. The star system was still and quiet, but littered with debris. The kind left behind after a large-scale conflict. Floating wreckage, scorched asteroids, shattered. Husks of unknown ships. And something else, remains of void swarm structures. Bioorganic hives, once believed impossible to destroy, had been melted down to their skeletal cores. No known weapons in the Concord arsenal could produce such damage. At the center of the devastation was a signal buoy. Old, rusted, but still active. The message it broadcast was short, human voice. Unmistakable. This sector is clear. No survivors. Recommend reclassification. Secured space. The voice belonged to Captain Lyra Hale. Back at the Grand Assembly, the Concord gathered again. This time, there was no mockery. Representatives leaned forward as Earth's envoy. Micah Tarrant played the transmission for them all. The chamber, once filled with disbelief, fell into silence. The humans have returned. Someone whispered. They were never gone, replied another. A counselor from the Talari Collective stood up, his expression unreadable behind a veil of shimmering. Light? How did they do this? Micah said nothing. He simply looked up at the stars projected on the dome above them. One twinkling light now burned brighter Sector Kiloweight. Once lost, now marked in green dot, they had sent one ship, and something had changed. The Concord's top strategists studied the system for days. The drone's recordings showed impossible. Things scorched terrain, shattered hives, fragments of both void swarm and unknown materials. Analysts tried to determine what kind of weapons had been used, but nothing matched existing Concord tech. Some thought it was a trick. Others began asking different questions. What kind of ship could do this? The only answer was the Valkyrie, and still no official contact. Only that first signal and the quiet wreckage of a battlefield where something powerful had fought and won. Then came the second message. It didn't come through Concord channels or Terra networks. It arrived directly at the Grand Assemblies. Primary communications NODAN encrypted packet broadcast through a hidden relay. The signal was unmistakably human. A holographic feed appeared in the assembly chamber, unexpected and uninvited. Delegates froze in place as the projection came to life. A dimly lit command deck, patched with mismatched wiring and scavenged parts, flickered into view. At its center stood a woman, her dark uniform frayed at the edges, her expression calm. But worn Captain Lyra Hale. She looked older, more hardened than the records showed. Her voice, though steady, carried the weight of something heavy. "To the Concord Assembly," she began. "This is Captain Hale of the Terran ship Valkyrie. Apologies for the silence. We've been busy learning, eh?" The room stayed silent as she continued. "We've spent the past year behind the lines studying the swarm, fighting where we could, tracking how they grow, how they move, how they fall apart. They're not invincible." She gestured off-screen and parted the feed, shifted, revealing footage of an alien structure collapsing in on itself, surrounded by artificial energy pulses. It didn't resemble any known Concord weapon, but it was effective. "We've modified our systems, integrated parts of what we've encountered. You may not recognize Valkyrie if you see her now, but she's still ours, still human." A beat of silence. Then her tone sharpened. "We're not here to impress anyone. We're not here to claim glory. We came because you needed help, because no one else believed one ship could make a difference." She looked directly into the camera. "We believe otherwise." The transmission ended. For a long moment, the chamber was still. Then quiet murmurs spread through the delegates, certain, confused, a few even unnerved. The Telluri envoy leaned toward his aide. "That ship shouldn't exist. They've made it into something new." The aide replied softly. Within hours, debate broke out across Concord channels. Some accused Earth of reckless experimentation. Others were furious that Valkyrie had operated without oversight. A few questioned whether the humans had crossed a line by integrating enemy's technology into their systems. But the results were undeniable. They had cleared an entire sector on their own. At Earth's mission headquarters, Ika Tian received confirmation that Valkyrie had re-entered Concord space, far from any major station. No docking request, no escort. Just a new set of coordinates and a short message. "We're heading for the next one." They weren't stopping. In private, some Concord commanders began requesting Earth's tactical manuals. Military liaisons from other species quietly reached out to Terran officers, asking about training programs. More than one young strategist began studying Earth's history, particularly how humans responded to long wars. Overwhelming odds being underestimated. The questions grew louder with each passing day. How had one ship done what dozens could not? What were the humans learning out there in the dark? And most of all, where was Valkyrie going next? When Valkyrie re-entered Concord-monitored space, it didn't arrive with ceremony or escort. It emerged from hyperspace above the mining colony of Theros 9. A battered blue-gray silhouette against the stars. Concord patrols stationed nearby scrambled to identify the ship, their scanners thrown into confusion by its unusual profile. For a moment, some thought it was a new swarm variant. Others prepared for possible engagement. Then the ship sent a single transponder code. Terran designation. TV's 01 Valkyrie. The station commander ordered immediate clearance. No one interfered. As Valkyrie approached, its condition became clear. The one sleek Terran cruiser was no longer recognizable. Armor plating had been replaced with asymmetric slabs of darkened material, clearly not of Earth's origin. Parts of the hull shimmered unnaturally. Some said it looked alive under certain spectrums. Heat exhausts glowed a muted blue-green. Its engine configuration had changed entirely. Inside the command center of Theros 9, officers and technicians stood frozen. As Valkyrie docked without delay, no boarding request, no clearance protocol. It simply latched onto the outer ring like it belonged. Then its airlock opened. Captain Lyra Hale stepped through first, flanked by 2 crew members in lightweight exosuits. Her once regulation uniform was now pieced together with armor plating and field-worn fabric. Her left eye had a faint glown ocular implant, Concorde standard but modified. Every step she took echoed with quiet confidence. The station commander, a Tellarine named Commander Eric Voss, greeted her with measured caution. "Captain Hale, we weren't expecting a Terran ship out here." Lyra's response was calm. "We weren't planning on coming back. But we found something." Eric hesitated. "Your ship's not standard Terran engineering." Lyra didn't deny it. "No, it's not." She handed over a drive module cold, metallic, and humming with encrypted data. "This contains tactical recordings, field analysis, and energy profiles of swarm command nodes. We found patterns, weaknesses, repeating structures. They grow fast, but they grow predictably. That's their flaw." As engineers, scientists, and military analysts pored over the data, disbelief turned to amazement. The information was detailed maps of swarm territories, power source nodes, behavioral analysis, and recorded battle logs showing how Valkyrie had dismantled key swarm hives using jury-rigged hybrid weapons. Some of the footage was difficult to watch. Close-quarter engagements, hand-belt explosives, modified energy disruptors forged from damaged swarm tissue. But it worked, and the results were irrefutable, wherever Valkyrie had gone. The swarm had fallen back by the 3rd day. Concorde Command issued a classified advisory to all fleet captains: study the Terran data. Incorporate what you can. Prepare for tactical shift. On the 5th day, a new order was issued: Terran operations are to be considered high-priority assets. And on the 7th day, 3 Concorde cruisers requested permission to be outfitted with human-engineered tactical modules. Word spread fast, across colonies, outposts, and deep space channels. The message was the same: Valkyrie has returned. The humans had not only survived, they had adapted, overcome, and somehow turned the war in their favor. Back on Theros 9, Lyra stood before a projected star map. Red zones marked swarm-held systems. Green markers showed cleared or contested. Space, one path stood out, irregular, jagged, but undeniable. It traced Valkyrie's journey through the chaos. A junior officer stepped forward. "Captain, where are you heading next?" Lyra didn't answer right away. She looked at the map, eyes focused on a dense cluster of red far beyond the current front lines. "Somewhere the swarm thinks we won't follow," she said finally. "We'll prove them wrong." She turned, eyes meeting the crew gathered around. "Her, fuel up. Rearm. We jump again in 20 hours. One ship, still leading the way at first." Most Concorde admirals dismissed the Valkyrie's tactics as improvisation born of desperation. But then more reports. Surface ships outfitted with Terran-style hull plating lasted longer in swarm encounters. Crews trained in human, unpredictable response drills survived ambushes others didn't. Engineering teams began experimenting with field modifications instead of relying solely on standardized Concorde templates. A shift had begun. Humanity, once ridiculed for its lack of tradition, was now being studied. On Theros 9, Captain Lyra Hale had opened her ship to Concorde advisors. Scientists from the Ishrin Collective, tactical officers from the Jalari, and 2 curious stool scholars boarded Valkyrie to inspect, but to learn. They walked the dimly lit corridors patched with hybrid wiring, touched the hull lined with void swarm plating, and examined the shield matrix that pulsed with unstable energy. "What is this shielding made from?" asked Scholar Rin Tal of the stool, his translucent hands brushing the wall. "Swarm resin, tempered and repurposed," said Lyra. "We found it absorbs a portion of their energy pulses and throws off their targeting." "That's not standard. It's adaptive," Rin whispered. "That's the point," said Lyra. "We stopped trying to match their strength. We made them react to ours." In the following weeks, new terms entered Concord military briefings: Terran, disruptive; warfare, dynamic augmentation, and pattern denial tactics. Human strategies were messy. They lacked the precision of the Syvern or the flawless logic of the Thaurin. But they worked because they were based on something the Void Swarm didn't understand: creative chaos. One example, later dubbed the Hail Maneuver, became required reading in naval academies across the Concord. During a swarm ambush, Valkyrie had deliberately vented atmosphere from one section of the ship to fake catastrophic damage. As the swarm vessels closed in for the kill, hidden rail cannons punched through their flanks at close range. No AI would have authorized such risk, but humans had, and it had saved them. Admiral Viren, a war strategist from the Aishreen Collective, admitted as much in a secure summit: "We designed ships to survive. The humans designed Valkyrie to adapt. That's the difference." Soon, small Concord units began requesting human advisors. Tactical modules were updated with flexible, reaction-based protocols. Simulations were rewritten to reward innovation instead of strict compliance. The greatest shift, however, came not from hardware, but from mindset. Species who once prided themselves on tradition began asking Terran officers to train their crews in resilience. Drill simulations where the goal wasn't just to win, but to keep fighting when everything failed. They called it the Earth mindset. Meanwhile, Valkyrie moved from system to system, always ahead of the front lines, always chasing swarm signals. Its crew had grown into something more than soldiers. They were explorers of war, pioneers of survival. They experimented, failed, rebuilt, and tried again. And with each encounter, they learned something new about the swarm, about their ship, and about themselves. Some called it reckless. Others, inspired. On a Concord news channel, an interview with a retired fleet captain summed up the shift. They sent one ship, not because they thought it would win the war. They sent it to change how we fought it. Back aboard Valkyrie, Lyra stood on the bridge, watching as new coordinates came in, a faint signal from a deep space research station under siege. No response for days. Minimal chance of survivors. Commander Sato stepped beside her. "Should we wait for backup?" Lyra didn't hesitate. "No, if we're the first there, we're the first they'll see standing." She turned to the helm. "Set course. We move at dawn." The galaxy was learning a new way to fight. And once again, Valkyrie would lead the charge. The message came through on a looped distress frequency. Garbled, fragmented, but unmistakably a research station under siege by the Void Swarm. The station, called Ardent Reach, orbited a small, dying star deep within contested space. It was a key scientific outpost for Concord Research, specializing in experimental anti-swarm technology. Losing it would be a strategic disaster. Valkyrie's sensors had picked up faint life signs inside the station, but no response to hails. The void around it thrummed with swarm activity, more intense than anything Valkyrie had faced before. The crew gathered on the bridge. Tension thickened the air, but no one faltered. Lyra stood at the helm, eyes narrowed. "We don't have the luxury of waiting for reinforcements," she said. "If we don't act, Ardent Reach falls on with it. Years of research." Commander Sato nodded. "We can't let the swarm claim another victory." Lyra glanced at Ion, their AI core, quietly calculating odds and scanning for unknown threats. ION run predictive engagement models. "What are our chances if we strike now?" The AI's voice was calm, yet neutral. "Estimated probability of mission success, 62% with current configuration. Risk to crew, high. Suggested modifications to increase survivability include deploying adaptive drone units and employing destabilizing pulse weapons." Lyra smiled faintly. That's what we're here for. For the next several hours, the crew worked in unison, modifying ship systems, loading new weapons, configuring drones designed for close-quarters swarm disruption. These drones, modeled after swarm predators, could infiltrate enemy hives and collapse their structures from within. As Valkyrie approached Ardent Reach, the void around them pulsed with unnatural energy. Swarm vessels emerged like shadows, sleek and terrifying, moving to encircle the ship. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. Hold formation, deploy drones, engage pulse shields. The drones launched in tight formation, weaving through the swarm, carrying their deadly payloads. The swarm counterattacked, firing bioorganic energy beams that shimmered with an eerie purple light. Valkyrie's adaptive shields absorbed most of the damage, but warning alarms blared as hull integrity dropped steadily. Brace for impact, Lyra ordered. Explosions rocked the ship as void creatures collided with Valkyrie's hull. In the chaos, the crew fought with precision and grid piloting, targeting, repairing. Suddenly, a warning flashed on the tactical display. A massive swarm. Queen's ship had entered the battle. Its presence twisted the tide. Swarm units intensified. Shields faltered, and Valkyrie was pushed to the brink. "We need to disrupt the Queen," Lyra said sharply. "Sato, you're with me. We're taking the assault pods to her bridge." A small team suited up, weapons charged. They launched in. Assault pods, fast, nimble, and shielded by energy barriers. Inside the Queen's ship, corridors writhed with pulsating biotubes. The air was thick with alien pheromones and the unmistakable hum of swarm nerve networks. The team moved cautiously, planting disruption charges that would sever the Queen's control over nearby swarm vessels. Lyra's implant glowed faintly as she interfaced with the Queen's systems, using modified Terran swarm tech to send a feedback pulse. The Queen convulsed as its neural web collapsed. The swarm units faltered, their coordinated assault breaking apart. Back on Valkyrie, the drones intensified their strike, now guided by a weakened swarm network. With a final surge, the Queen's ship broke apart, its core detonating in a brilliant cascade of bio-energy. The battle was over. Ardent Reach sent a faint, relieved signal. Survivors rescued, research data secured. Back aboard Valkyrie, the crew gathered quietly. They were battered, exhausted, but victorious. Lyra looked out at the stars through the reinforced viewport. "One ship," she whispered. "One ship can make a difference." Her voice carried hope, a promise that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, humanity's heart beat strong. And as the Valkyrie prepared to jump again, the galaxy watched, no longer mocking, but watching with wary respect. The war had not ended. It would not end quickly. But the tide had turned. The return of Valkyrie was more than a symbol, it was proof. Proof that hope could survive in the darkest void. That a single spark of human ingenuity could ignite change across an entire galaxy. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. Children watched halas of Captain Lyra Hale and her crew. Scientists pored over recovered technology. Politicians no longer dismissed humanity's place among the stars, they celebrated it. The Grand Assembly convened again, this time with a new tone. Collaboration. Representatives from dozens of species gathered, not to mock, but to learn. Valkyrie's data became the foundation for a new coalition strategy. Human tactics blended with alien technologies. Shared intelligence created hybrid weapons and defenses. The war against the Void Swarm was no longer a fight of isolated forces. It was a united front. At the heart of it all stood the crew of Valkyrie. They trained others in the Earth's mindset: adaptation, resilience, unpredictability. They shared hard-earned lessons from the void, forging bonds where none had existed before. Lyra Hale once a lone captain from an underestimated planet, now held the respect of admirals and scientists alike. In a quiet moment aboard the refitted Valkyrie Lyra gazed out at the stars, some shining bright, others still dark with conflict. Commander Sato joined her. "We changed how the galaxy fights," he said softly. Lyra nodded. "Not just how it fights, how it hopes." They both knew the war was far from over, but the future had shifted. Then, a new transmission arrived, this time from an unknown source. A simple message encoded with an ancient symbol. "We have been watching. Your courage inspires us. You are not alone." Lyra's eyes widened. "Not alone," she repeated. The message sparked a new question. Who else out there had survived? Who else might join the fight? The galaxy was bigger than anyone imagined, but for the first time, humanity was ready. The Valkyrie prepared for another jump. This time, not just to fight, but to unite, as engines hummed and stars blurred. Lyra's final thought echoed in the command deck. One ship, one crew, one spark that lit the galaxy. The legacy had only just begun.